This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Tuesday, November the 4th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams. He's produced the program. Let's get at it. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue and on the air is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So as you just heard from Sarah Strickland, weather bomb on its way here apparently today. Heavy winds, lots of rain. Marine Atlantic has already cancelled the crossings. Air travel is likely going to be interrupted at some point today, so it's going to be a nasty one. Oh, if you're in and around St. John's, don't put out your garbage bin today. Garbage collection is cancelled, and we don't need the bins blown up and down the road. Your thoughts? All right, let's check in Conception Bay South and Mount Pearl, where they're hosting the Under-18 Women's National Championships. Pretty prestigious tournament. Team Atlantic, which has 3 players from this province, Sophie Urquhart, Marissa Dawson of Bay Roberts. I wonder, any relation to Dawson Mercer? That's, of course, Dawson's last name. And Katie Hurley, Grand Falls, Windsor. Dropped an overtime 4-3 loss to Quebec, lost again then to Alberta, and then we got BC tonight at 7:30 at the Glacier in Mount Pearl. So good luck to Team Atlantic. 2 close ones, but no wins yet. All right, let's stick with the ice. This time a little bit of curling. So I don't know if you know much about Team Perry. So Team Simon Perry. They won the 2024 U18 National Champions. They're the 2025 U Sports Bronze Medalist. And just this past weekend came back from the 2025 OVCA Super Spiel yesterday in Ottawa. So featured some of the top teams from Ontario, Manitoba, Quebec, Nova Scotia. Some international teams there as well. Went 6-0 to win the title, including wins over World Junior reps from the United States and Switzerland. So apparently one of the best junior cash spiels in the world. The team: skip Simon Perry, third Nicholas Codner, second Braden Snow, lead Carter Holden, and the coach is Glenn Goss. Congratulations, Team Perry. Bright future ahead for them. All right, we've talked about this lady on the program in the past. Judy Shepherd, she's from Mount Pearl. She just completed her 30th marathon in New York City. She got invited to represent her age group. So we've talked about her on the program. Last year, she completed her 6th major in Tokyo. She was running in Boston at the marathon the day of the attack. So just completed her 30th marathon. All right, she ran her first marathon at the age of 50. She's going to turn 74 this month. So tremendous accomplishment for Judy. Bravo. Congratulations. Oh, and I've been asked many times, why do we bring up the Blue Jays during the postseason? Number one, I love the Jays. But I'm told many times, who cares? Well, Rogers cares. The most viewed Rogers telecast in history was the Toronto Blue Jays in Game 7. Almost 11 million viewers, averaged about 7.5 million per game throughout the World Series. So I guess some people do care. All right, let's keep going. More important things. So yesterday, the elected members of the House of Assembly were sworn in, save 3. MHA's elect Jeff Dwyer, Mark Bott, and Paul Dinn, of course, who's been tagged to be the Education Minister. And this is all about the request for judicial recounts. All right, so the Tories won 21 seats, a majority government, and they're not going to reopen the House until all these recounts take place, if they're all accepted by the courts. None of them are within the 10-vote margin to trigger an automatic recount, and some of them have some pretty significant vote advantages for the Conservatives who were elected in those 3 seats, so we'll see where it goes. And I'm really unsure as to why it's become such a massive deal that Paul Lane is now the Speaker of the House. For his constituents, they have questions. I mean, Mr. Lane apparently in the past has said he was not interested in the Speaker's position, but now he is. So they talk about his inability to represent the constituents in Mount Pearl Southlands as vocally in public as Mr. Lane has in the past. And if you're one of the people who voted for him and thought he was not going to be taking on the Speaker's role, as per his words on Facebook, we can talk about it. But there's no coincidence the PCs didn't put forward a member to run for Speaker with their 21 seats. I assume all these 3 recounts will go in the favour of the Conservatives unless something is drastically wrong. I don't know how long it's going to take, but it'd be nice to get the House reopened. And of course, Mr. Wakeham, when the leader of the opposition, talked to Premier Wakeham, about how few days are actually used sitting in the House of Assembly, conducting the people's business. We'll see if that changes in the future. When we spoke with Premier Wakeham on this program last week, of course, plenty of questions about the Upper Churchill MOU. So at the time, he said, in a couple of weeks, they'll have a look around and see who's going to be on this next independent review panel. And he said no political appointees, but looking for an organisation without conflict of interest, with the horsepower and expertise in this arena to conduct the review. But we still really don't know about ongoing negotiations. We don't really know what the timeliness looks like. But now he goes on to say yesterday that he has not spoken to either Hydro-Quebec and or Premier Francois Legault, and the independent review panel will be established within the next 60 days. So I don't know where you stand on the supposed deadline of April of 2026 to see the benefits retroactive to January of this year. But now, time is pretty important here. We can talk about the complexities of the MOU and all the different moving parts, but the most prominent question that I field via email, more often than not, is about our power rates compared to Hydro-Quebec's power rates, or the residents of Quebec, the ratepayers. All right. So I get the point. I mean, we pay 14.273 cents plus the additional fees. So let's just round it off at 14.5 cents. In the province of Quebec, on average, about 8 cents. My question that I pose when I'm asked that particular question is, how do we even incorporate that into a contract with Quebec? I mean, we're bringing our own electricity rates to the dance, as they are. The only way we can impact rates, as far as I can tell, and if I'm missing something, please fill me in, unless any money, if there's ever a definitive agreement here, and we don't know what the future holds, but any monies that come in the door, unless that's used to control rates, to stabilize rates, or God forbid, bring our rates down, that's the only way that's going to happen. There's no way Hydro-Quebec is simply going to say, oh, okay, so why don't we subsidize your hydro rates, as opposed to, here's the cash and do as you see fit. And so whether that be applied to our rates, whether it be with debt and deficit, who knows what the future holds. But if we ever get to any sort of deal, whether there's a renegotiated better deal based on Premier Wakeham's approach, well, we'll see. But it's got to be earmarked for something specific. It cannot be straight into government coffers to do as they see fit. It just wouldn't make any sense. There's too much on the line. We're facing some enormous issues regarding not only our power rates, but yes, deficit and debt is completely out of control. So if you want to take it on, we can do exactly that. And not necessarily groundbreaking stuff, but all right, so there's a new report that has been published in the journal Marine Ecology Progress Series. And this is an examination of the harp seal population. About 4.4 million harp seals out there, second largest seal population in the world. Okay. They go on to say that North Atlantic harp seals' eating habits may be affecting ground fish recovery. You don't say. So they talk about examining what's in the seals' bellies and what have you. They go on to say that the researchers found that harp seals consume a higher biomass of shared target species that are caught by fisheries, and that they have a more significant role than fisheries do on the stalled recovery of ground fish stocks. And of course, they're talking about the fact they eat Atlantic cod and capelin, also things like Greenland halibut, American plaice. All right, so they examine harp seals' stomach contents, fatty acids, stable isotopes, to estimate their diets. The researchers' analysis revealed that from 2018 to 2020, harp seals' consumption rates were 24 times higher than fisheries catch rates for Atlantic cod, Greenland halibut, and American plaice. All right. Without being scientists and having conducted the formal research, we knew this, pretty much. The question then becomes, what gets done about it? You know, we can use this information when we do stock assessments, and everybody knows the implication of seals. And like I think John Everett said at one time, they're not eating Mary Browns. No, they're not. They're eating the aforementioned species that are part of the wild fisheries. So now that this research has been published in this Marine Ecology Progress Series journal, now what? You know, it does kind of seem funny to me that we have, you know, seals off our coast not deemed a problem, but seals in the Gulf of St. Lawrence are apparently a problem. It's a different set of circumstances. No, it's not. But now this information's out there, so where to from there, I think would be a pretty important question. And in the world of fisheries, this time farmed fish, fin farmed fish. We know there's plenty of consternation out there, whether it be with the FFAW or the Aquaculture Industry Association, regarding the proposed National Marine Conservation Area. Work being proposed by Parks Canada. And Parks Canada have been pretty clear. They are doing a cultural and an environmental assessment of this proposed huge swath of national marine conservation area. It would have distinct implications for the aquaculture industry. So they've just released an economic analysis of what that means. That's where we need to kind of dovetail both, right? Environmental impact with economic impact. Of course, it has been, in large part, an economic savior for communities where aquaculture has come to town, and it's grown exponentially over the past couple of decades. But you want to talk about it? Let's do it. Just 1 second, sip of coffee. We're back. Yesterday, the president of NAPE, Jerry Earle, here on the program, talking about what he thinks is privatization creep in the healthcare system, made very specific mention of a system called HALO, used in long-term care. And what basically happens is, if someone falls out of bed, whatever the case may be, a robot will trigger a message to be sent to somewhere in Ontario, and then Ontario would relay the information to the long-term care facility here. But that's after the fact, someone's fall. Then it begs the question of artificial intelligence, not only in healthcare, but throughout the gamut of everything that we see, hear, and read. We know it's already a major problem in social media and how the internet is being used. Even Google. You Google anything up, generally speaking, the first review you get is an AI-generated overview of whatever topic that you put into your Google machine. In healthcare, this is where we're going to have to be, I would think, very careful about how AI's utilized by governments. In healthcare, it's interesting. So there's research being done by folks in Toronto. It's now been published, this study in the Canadian Medical Association Journal. It shows that there's a 26% reduction in unanticipated mortality after this tool called ChartWatch, which is artificial intelligence, and its early warning system used at the Unity Health Toronto. So it monitors the patients in real time. But a 26% reduction in unanticipated mortality, so unexpected deaths, pretty significant stuff. And maybe things that might not see human intervention act as quickly and as effectively. So we're going to struggle with artificial intelligence in the education system. We already know it to be true. We're always going to struggle with it in social media because you can't trust a whole lot of what you see. But at the exact same time, it can have very helpful applications in arenas such as healthcare. And then don't get me started on the amount of power required for these data centers or the amount of water required to cool these data centers. But, you know, the careful applications like this ChartWatch software or artificial intelligence looks like it is a very effective tool. And it's a pretty detailed study here. The study analyzed data from 13,649 patients aged 55 to 80 years old admitted to the general internal medicine unit. 9,626 in the pre-intervention period, and over 4,000 using ChartWatch, and 8,470 admitted to subspecialty units that did not use ChartWatch, and the results, the outcomes were distinct. So 26% reduction in unexpected deaths because of the application there. What do you think? All right. So we've heard from Happy Valley Goose Bay leadership, or whether it be the mayor, the deputy mayor, many times in the past about public safety. And now on the heels of 4 fires in one evening, which are all suspected to be cases of arson, they're looking for some public safety intervention, and immediately. You know, we've heard from politicians, and in this case the majority government PCs, about hiring more police officers, hiring more Crown prosecutors. All very good ideas, but, you know, we can try and build new prisons, hire more cops, hire more Crown attorneys, as opposed to what are some of the root causes, including poverty and homelessness, that drives so much of the crime we see. Don't take it from me, take it from the sheriff's officers in the courtrooms right across the province. Addictions, homelessness, poverty, mental health related matters, that's what we don't talk about enough. Yes, we need more police and Crown prosecutors given the prevalence of crime and the trend upwards in cases of serious crimes, but they're looking for that intervention in Happy Valley Goose Bay, and if anyone there would like to join us this morning, please do. On that front with fires, still no real status update from the RCMP regarding investigations of potential arson in the North Shore fires, the Kingston fire. And last October the 19th, the Driftwood Inn in Deer Lake burnt to the ground. The investigation is ongoing. It's November the 4th of 2025. There's got to be some resolution to that investigation at this point, doesn't there? And again, we've never even heard from the owners of the Driftwood Inn about their take on what happened. The allegations of fire suppression services not there, alarms that did not go off. The fact that so many people were able to get out is because someone was running up and down the hall, banging on the doors. A man is dead. And so what's the result of that investigation? I don't know what kind of implication it would have across all of these public buildings for inspection of fire prevention services and alarms and sprinklers or whatever, but you would think somebody knows something by now, but we don't know anything. Anyway, you want to talk about it? Let's go. How are we doing on the phone there, David? Budget day in Ottawa, everybody's favorite. All right, so I don't really know what to expect necessarily. We've already heard the various parties talk about whether they will or will not support a budget that they haven't seen either, which is, you know what. So defense spending. We know the budget's going to be in and around $9 billion this year, on the pathway to $150 billion when we hit 5% of GDP. What's fascinating about defense spending is just think about it. And we've heard from the Parliamentary Budget Office year over year talking about underspending. Between 2017 and 2023, the Defense Department efforts to buy new equipment fell short by $18.3 billion. It doesn't really add up in your mind when we talk about governments being unable to spend earmarked money, but in defense and defense procurement, we have struggled mightily in this country. We don't have any real details about specific earmarks of money, whether it be to replace the Victoria-class submarines or other parts of infrastructure, whether it be in the country's north or elsewhere, but defense spending is going to be a big part of it. You know, we've heard the generalities from the finance minister and the prime minister about generational investments, whatever that's supposed to mean. We do have some inkling about what's going to be included in the budget. Why? Because we've had a suite of pre-budget announcements, which is always the case. So $9 billion on defence to be spent by the end of March, $13 billion, and that's initially for the Build Canada Homes Agency. As one of the newly created special operating agencies, we still don't even know how it's going to work. So maybe some more details there. $2 billion for small nuclear in Ontario, $5 billion for the new Strategic Response Fund, $3.6 billion over the course of the next 3 years for temporary employment insurance measures. They say that that's got something to do with the tariff uncertainty. Federal policing capacity, $1.8 billion. That's some 1,000 new RCMP officers. Biofuel production incentive, that's in and around $350 billion, if I remember correctly. Money for CRA's, trucking industry non-compliance. All right. Inside CRA, I mean, the problems are clear. The massive hiring, the massive layoffs, the massive rehiring, the inaccurate information coming from CRA, the inability to speak with anyone live on the telephone or at counter service belong to CRA. So money on that particular front. Then we talk about Foreign Credential Recognition Action Fund. What happened to all the concerns Canadians had about foreign interference? That seems to have gone by the wayside. We had a public inquiry. And there wasn't a whole lot of specific detail, but we know who the bad actors are. But that's kind of gone by the wayside, when in fact it's critically important. So if you want to chime in on budget day, where you think we're heading, we'll see. And then it won't be today where we find out whether or not the government is going to pass this sniff test as to whether or not we go back to the polls, because this is a confidence motion when the budget is tabled. But that vote won't be for a couple of weeks. We'll inevitably hear from the various parties their general thoughts. You can kind of predict who's going to say what. And they only need 3 members of Parliament to vote with them or to abstain to see the budget pass and to get through their first confidence motion in Parliament. Let's check in on the Twitter box. We're VOCM Open Line. You can follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. Let's have a great show. And the topic, absolutely entirely up to you. So give us a shout during this break. We'll speak with you on the other side. We'll get back to the program. Let's begin this morning on line number 1. Say good morning to Ward 4 Councillor here in the City of St. John's. It's Tom Davis. Councillor, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Morning to you.
How are we doing?
Doing okay, thanks. How about you?
Good. We got some city stuff. We were blessed to keeping track of that rain. We had about 30 to 40 millimeters of rain on Friday, and hopefully we're going to get a whole bunch more today. However, of course, along with that, today is looking like a lot of wind. So you already alluded to it, but no curbside garbage collection today. So ask people if they did put it out, which I'm sure a lot of people have, to ask someone if they're at work to go take it in, because the type of wind we're supposed to have this afternoon could be down in the harbor.
Yeah, I mean, they can take off pretty easily without being absolutely full with the heaviest garbage. So please, if you put your bin out, get your neighbour to bring it back in for you before it's blown into someone's automobile or whatever the case may be.
Absolutely. As well, the landfill residential drop-off today at the landfill is going to close at 12 o'clock. So if you're making a trip down there, get down there before 12.
Fair enough.
So I wanted to take off the hat here now and have a little go at, first of all, congratulate Premier Wakeham and his team, as well as all the returning and new MHAs this year. Special shout out to my former colleague, Sheila O'Leary. She's actually now going to be the MHA that I'm dealing with in part of my ward. So it's great to work with her at a different level. So, today being budget day, I've done a lot of reflections, I'm sure a lot of the MPs and different people have been doing on, where we are and how we're going to navigate forward as we move forward. A lot of people, I hear Premier Wakeham talk about he's going to worry about the budgets of the residents of Newfoundland and Labrador before he worries about our budget. And you and I have talked about this a little bit, and I think for me it's the messaging. And when we look at these systemic problems where it seems like systems are breaking down, like healthcare or justice, and then everybody's looking for solutions. And if we go upstream, then the next layer would be addictions and poverty and things you alluded to already. But if you go up one layer higher than that, it's ultimately what is in everybody's heads as we get out of bed and as we go to bed and as we plan our day and plan our lives and think about the different perspectives. And I know I've read a fair bit about the difference between ambition, which is basically what you're going to do to manifest your life, and entitlement, which is what other people are going to do to help you manifest your life. And somewhere between those two places is where most people settle. And at different points in your life, you're maybe in different mindsets. But I think the messaging that leaders put out, and I include that with family leaders or community leaders, politicians, is important. And some people are just in a place where they're lost, and it doesn't really matter what messaging you give to those, because those people need love and they need support, and sometimes they do need government help and family help and everything else. But for the vast majority of people, although they don't realize it, their actions really do make a difference, not only in their own lives, but in the lives of people around them. And I do think that if we could have leaders who could somehow more nuanced, kind of ask more of people to do more as opposed to step in and try and be messiahs or try to solve their problems. I mean, I know it's very difficult, and you don't want to blame people or shame people or anything else, but I do think that until people realize that there's not enough money in the world and there's not enough public servants in the world to save everybody, and if that message could get out there, I think it would be helpful in helping people make more of a difference in their own lives.
Yeah, I suppose we can summon a little John F. Kennedy, I suppose, with that kind of stuff. Yeah, so, I mean, for me, personal responsibility kind of begins and stops with me and the control I have over myself, my actions, my thoughts, my behavior. So the widespread, what can you do for your province versus what the province can do for you, I get it conceptually speaking, but everyone just has such a different lot in life. There's the ability to make a pragmatic difference for Dave Williams versus someone who's not in a position to make any difference and is struggling to keep their head above water. So I get what you're talking about, but there's as much theology there as there is public policy.
Sure. I mean, I totally agree with you. But, I interact with an awful lot of people. And, for example, this weekend I spoke to a gentleman who grew up in a very abusive home. And child abuse, as you've spoken to my wife and Connie and myself over the years, in trying to bring child abuse more to the forefront and the prevention of child abuse. But it's incredible when I look at that man's life, and he's been, starting at 12, he's been in and out of correctional facilities, and, violence and anger and how that's manifested itself. And even the ability for someone who is not directly being abused or who knows of someone being abused to intervene on that level can have a massive prevention of not only criminal activity but health care, because it's been proven that child abuse directly impacts how long people live and the different diseases and the mental health and the addictions. But again, for me, it's how do we try and get the conversation back around the fact that a lot of the rules that have been kind of created within society, like the idea you'd retire as soon as you could, for example, which is a fairly new mindset. When you don't have enough people to do the job, nobody wants to talk about the fact that, whether it's in business or in the public sector, that there is a personal responsibility to your community and to your province and to your family. And if everybody in, for example, healthcare retires as soon as they can with an aging population, there's a wave that's coming through. Then when you need healthcare or your family needs healthcare, then it just won't be there. So how do you get the different stakeholders to be in the room and to realize that, well, maybe some of these things that we always took for granted need to change? And as taboo as that might be, it's not going to be much good if everybody is 57 or 58 or 59 or 60, and there's, other than immigrants and a small number of children who do have ambition and do have work ethic and do have the support of their families and their community can, backfill a certain percentage of those roles. I just watching it and whether it's what gift would you give yourself in 20 years, it would probably be a functioning society. You'd probably have some financial security. You'd have looked after your health if you could, and then you'd be able to enjoy, your future life. But it's also a gift to the rest of the province and to the rest of your community, because they don't have to support you and they don't have to maybe pay as much for health care. And I realize it's kind of like you said, theological or philosophical, but the reality is it's having direct impacts. I mean, the painful stories we're hearing about healthcare and people dying prematurely or suffering needlessly or waiting years for testing. That's not about, and I know you keep saying this, and I think pretty well everybody here listening realizes, I hope they agree, that it's not that we're not spending enough money on healthcare. It's that for some reason, either people aren't working as diligently, aren't working as long, aren't working as smart, don't care as much. Like, there's some combination of everything, because we've got more technology and more trained people. I mean, the most highly educated Newfoundlanders and Labradorians we've ever had are the people working to try and keep the province functioning. And I think we just all have to realize that it's not a game of point the finger. It's how can we all come together, and we need leadership who is willing to have these tough conversations and bring the people in the room and say, this is what government can do, this is what the stakeholders in whatever we're talking about can do. Where's the business community? Where's the volunteer community? Where are the parents? Where are the grandparents? We're running out of runway, and I just want to call on people to, in particular, obviously, the provincial government is one with the most ability to take a leadership role in this in the province, and I call on Mr. Wakeham and the rest of his team to stop playing the card we've been playing for way too long, because you're running out of people to be able to help. I mean, you think about this Upper Churchill deal we just went through, without a bunch of 70 and 80-year-olds, that deal would have got signed. And where would we be? We're losing that generation. And they have a lot to contribute to this conversation. And I just call on Mr. Wakeham to gather the 70 and 80-year-olds that are around this province in every field, experts in business and sciences and engineering and social sciences, and get those people's insight and get them on some sort of massive working group and turn this province around, because it has so much potential. It always has. And I believe strongly that, it's within our grasp, but it's going to take courage, it's going to take leadership. So I call on the majority leadership now to take the role. Anything I can do to help, give me a call.
Appreciate the time, Tom.
Take care, everyone.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, just quickly, and this is not necessarily part of that conversation, but mention some of the abuse numbers and what have you. I do get asked repeatedly, and I have no way to answer this question as to when the next round of compensation will be flowing to the victims or survivors of abuse at Mount Cashel. It's a good question. Also, on top of that, I mean, we all understand how the money was raised when the Roman Catholic Episcopal Corporation was held liable for the abuse at Mount Cashel and then selling off all the church property, well, for the most part. But the compensation package in full is going to look like somewhere in the neighborhood of $110 million. So far, there's been around $50 million, I think is the last number I've seen, that has been raised. So the question also then becomes is who fills the rest of that shortage? It can only be one group, taxpayers, me and you. And I'm not going to say that I begrudge any compensation flowing because I don't. But when are we going to get an update on that front? And remember, inside that was the government, even though it wasn't as part of the Schools Act, the government actually had to buy the schools from the Roman Catholic Episcopal Corporation, even though the Schools Act was pretty clear that there would have to be no cash transfer for ownership of those schools as long as they were used for educational purposes. But yet, here we are. All right, let's get a break. And when we come back, plenty of show left for you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 2. Say good morning to the president at Poly Unity. That's Mark Gillingham. Good morning, Mark. You're on the air.
Morning, Paddy. How are you?
Best kind. How about you?
Yeah, very well, thanks.
So I know a bit about Poly Unity and some of the new partnerships that have been forged here in the province, but let's start with the basics. Who and what is Poly Unity?
That's a great question. I'm still trying to explain that to my mom and dad. Whenever you're dealing with an advanced technology company, it's sometimes difficult for people to understand fundamentally what you do. But 3D printing, or additive manufacturing as it's commonly known, is a transformative technology, and it's being used in many industries, from aerospace through automotive and many of our other industries. But it's also really transforming healthcare, and basically it's an advanced manufacturing technology that allows you to produce complex 3D models of all kinds of products. And specifically within healthcare, you can make medical equipment, lab equipment, replacement parts, but you can also do patient-specific anatomical models. You can do wearable devices such as casts, splints, dental applications. And on the frontier applications, you're getting, into surgical instruments and guides and custom implants. That's not currently what Poly Unity is doing. But the challenge with this technology is just the accessibility. And so what Poly Unity has built over the past few years is a digital platform that hosts all these products and services so you can easily access them through a web portal. Some design services, if you can't find what you're looking for, we can actually design and create those products for you. And ultimately then the manufacturing using this additive manufacturing or 3D print technology. So, we've been dealing with Newfoundland Labrador Health Services. They've been a great supporter of ours for quite some time. We're fully contracted with them at this point and integrated throughout the province. But we're delivering these services across Canada at this point, from Vancouver to Ontario to Newfoundland Labrador. And, as I've said, it's really transformative in the way it impacts healthcare. And maybe what I'll do is give one kind of very straightforward example. We deliver custom boluses for Newfoundland Labrador Health Services for all the radiation therapy applications that are taking place in the province right now. So previous to, Poly Unity working with the cancer care team here, if you had, especially if it was in the kind of the head or neck region, if you had to get radiation therapy, the process is that you'd have to have a mask stretched over your face, you'd have plaster bandages put over that area, and then you would need to take, they'd make a plaster mold of that, then they'd create a positive from that mold, and then the dosimetrist, who's arguably one of the most trained medical professionals we have in our province, would then literally have to hand mold the bolus that's used to keep the skin from burning and to target the radiation therapy, so it targets the bad cells and not the good ones. And as you can appreciate, that's not a great patient experience. We've now worked with them to digitize that whole process. So we now take the surface layer from the CT scan, and the dosimetrist just uses a piece of software. They send us the file. We actually 3D print the mold. We make the bolus out of a much more accurate biocompatible material, and we send that back to them in 24 hours. Saves thousands of dollars per application for the healthcare service. The patient experience is much, much better, and the dosimetrist doesn't spend a lot of their time. We free up hours and hours from them. We're also producing lab equipment, replacement parts, and so on and so forth. But, that'll give you a little feel for kind of the technology and what we're doing.
It's fascinating stuff. When you talk about transformative, you just gave us a very clear example, which I appreciate, gives me a better understanding of what we're actually talking about here. But other things like surgical tools and replacement parts, give us an idea in the world of procurement how much time, and time has a significant value, how much time and money can be saved?
There's one project right now that we're doing. There's a rollout through infrastructure. I won't get into the details because it's kind of just happening now. But like within one project that's rolling out across the province right now, they needed a part that they didn't have, that wasn't available in the marketplace. Their facilities team contacted us. We created that part literally within days. And a big part of our platform is that we hold. You can't just throw a part into healthcare. So we hold a medical device establishment license with Health Canada. We follow, very high quality management standards. But ultimately, we created this product within a couple of days. We got IPAC approval, work with their procurement team, and that one product in a rollout, can save the healthcare organization about $500,000. Probably take a year-long rollout down to 3 or 4 months. So, those are the types of, and the important part I think as well is that these are innovations and ideas that are coming from frontline clinicians and staff within our healthcare facilities. Like lots of times they have the knowledge of what they need to solve the problems. They just don't have access to the tools.
How does PolyUnity and or any of your partners utilize artificial intelligence? Is it used outside of designing products and the printing of products or manufacturing, whatever the right word is? Are there other applications that are you using with AI? Because I mentioned one off the top of the show, a thing called ChartWatch, which has seen a 26% reduction in unexpected deaths in hospital settings in Ontario. So can you give us some more AI-related examples in healthcare?
Yeah, for sure, and it really is kind of impacting all industries and beginning to end. So we use it, obviously operationally within our organization, but everything from how fast you can actually design a product at this point, how quickly you can get it out. But really, what we're building with our platform-based AI is the ability to take in that idea, ensure that we inform it so we can, for the person who's submitting the idea, they can understand what the ISO standards or the medical device standards may be for that particular product. Make sure that, we use AI to really improve the assessment from a quality management perspective, and then to be able to use the tools also to optimize it for, print production and manufacturing. And so it really is like from ideation all the way through to ensuring, the quality of manufacturing across the board. And we're stitching now an ambitious AI program into our digital platform.
Artificial intelligence, it's right there in front of us today, and the full-on infiltration yet to come. But AI in the education system is going to be problematic regarding critical thinking. AI inside the world of social media is going to be net negative, there's no doubt about it. But AI in the world of healthcare delivery, obviously can be very helpful, and it can do the work of many very, very quickly. What does that mean for actual jobs? Because that's one of the things, in AI, it's an algorithm, so bad information in means bad information out, but it's also going to potentially cost some people some jobs. People obviously are going to have to work on the platforms, maintain the platforms, but how many jobs will be displaced with the AI implementation that we're currently looking at inside you, PolyUnity, and your partners?
Yeah, that's a good question, and one that's ongoing. I don't know if I'd put a specific number on that, but Patty, what I'd say within healthcare is that we've got a long ways to go before that's a problem for us. The challenge we have right now is that we don't have enough healthcare professionals to do the work that needs to be done. We have an aging population in Newfoundland and Labrador, and I think we need all the help that we can get at this point. So, maybe at some point in the future it becomes a problem, but I also think that it's going to free people up, and it's going to make our healthcare practices much more accurate at the end of the day, from diagnosis to, the assessment, the record keeping, the transfer of information. Obviously, you just can't blindly use AI. That's not the right approach. But as a tool that complements your current workflows, or how you're using it for diagnostic imaging or things of that nature, I think we'd all want. If you could come in and say, okay, we're going to increase the accuracy of your, the diagnosis of a diagnostic imaging from 70% to 90% or whatever that looks like, I think we'd all take that today or tomorrow if we could get it. So, in other industries, there's no doubt I think it's really going to impact it, but healthcare is really a very personable, service-oriented industry, and I do think AI, when used properly, has the ability to have a tremendous positive impact for us.
I know that you're doing some of this work right around the country. How much, for instance, how much business are you doing in Ontario or BC or Alberta compared to where you are, potentially the infancy of your work here in this province?
Yeah, I would say it's probably the bulk of it. Well, it's maybe a split. I was going to say the bulk of it is in Atlantic Canada at this point, but Ontario and British Columbia are certainly coming online as well. So the majority is in the Atlantic provinces and with Newfoundland Labrador Health Services, but we're expanding pretty rapidly into Ontario and British Columbia and other areas across the province. So it's a sliding chart, I would say, at this point, but still the majority is in Atlantic Canada.
Do you have a headquarters here in this province?
Yeah, absolutely. That was what we announced. So we are headquartered in Newfoundland Labrador in St. John's, and so the new facility, we're actually in the downtown core, which is a fantastic place for a tech and a manufacturing company to be. And we're located straight in the heart of downtown St. John's. That's our company headquarters.
I appreciate your time and the information shared here this morning, Mark. Continued successes.
Yep, no, I appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. It's Mark Gillingham, the president at PolyUnity. It's a weird, wacky, complicated world. And I'll stick by some of my initial thoughts on artificial intelligence. And some people say to me, look, why am I even worried about that? It has no impact on my life. But it probably does. On social media, it is going to be hugely problematic. It already is. In the world of education and using these large language models like the chat GPTs, we've talked about a story come from MIT's Media Lab about people in 3 different groups being asked to write an essay for their SATs. One group used just their head, one used Google, one used ChatGPT. The outcomes were distinctly different and huge problems for those who went beyond using Google, whether it be to remember what they wrote, to recall what they wrote, to be able to reiterate what they wrote, to remember what they wrote, period. Look, it's just going to be a problem. In healthcare, it seems to be a different beast. I mentioned one specific issue called ChartWatch off the top and unexpected deaths. You just heard Mark Gillingham talking about the speed and efficiency and the productivity associated with using artificial intelligence in healthcare. But I think we're just going to have to wrap our minds around it a little bit clearer so that we don't get bamboozled in the arenas of education and social media versus what can be very helpful applications, as Mr. Gillingham articulated here this morning. All right, let's get a break in. When we come back, we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, Heather. You're on the air.
Hi, good morning, Patty.
Good morning.
So I just want to call in and update you on our animal rights rally that we had yesterday evening in Harbor Grace. So we had a good turnout. So I want to say thank you to everyone for coming. We had people come far as Gambo, actually, so that was quite a drive. But I guess when people are passionate about something, they're going to show up. So they did.
Okay.
So it was interesting, and we met at the town hall, and then we did a little walk, and we walked by the property with the animals on there. The police did come and do a wellness check on the animals when we were there. And interestingly enough, they said they saw 5 of the 8 dogs that we know that are there. And once again, they said they felt the dogs were fine because they were fed. And, you could see, we could see, because, people could see over the fence that, some of the dogs were chained on with very short chains. And if they were to jump, they would literally hang themselves. So, we spoke to the police officers after, and they said, I spoke to one myself, and I said to him, okay, so the dogs are fed, but do they have proper shelter? Do they have, are they meeting provincial standards? And I listed off what I know, of course, and he actually said to me, I enforce the criminal code. So I don't know if he's not aware that he's supposed to enforce the Animal Health and Protection Act, or if he doesn't know it, but this is where we are with the RCMP, some of them having to enforce, the Animal Health and Protection Act. They don't know. I don't know if they don't know. Like I said, they're supposed to do it, or they're just not doing it. But it's very frustrating that's what we were faced with last night. I mean, it's getting cold, and these animals are left outside, and nobody's doing nothing. So that was that part. So, that was very frustrating. But there is a positive to it, because we did meet with the town council after. And I did write some new bylaws, and they were positive about that. And they took the bylaws to have a look over, because they do need new bylaws, because theirs are very outdated. So I think, they will work with us on that, and you'll see new bylaws for the town. And the municipal enforcement officer, he's starting the training this week, so he'll have special constable status, so he should be able to remove animals. He is one person, so, if there's dangerous situations, obviously he'll have to take the authorities with him, right? But at least it's something.
Yeah. So, there used to be a variety of entities that could enforce the Animal Health and Protection Act, I should add. So municipalities can do it through their bylaw officers. Actually, conservation officers that work in the Department of Forestry, I don't even know what it's called anymore, Forestry and Agri-Foods maybe, they can do it. We can actually appoint inspectors right directly from the minister, the RNC, the RCMP. So there should be a variety of people out there who can indeed be enforcing this particular piece of legislation. But to your point, it seems like there's some obvious confusion about who shares those responsibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it's frustrating because, the bottom line is the animals are not getting the help that they should be getting, and they're being left there. And, someone has to do something, because it just can't be left like this. It's obviously systematic failure, but, someone has to step up and fix the problem. We're advocating for it, but, how much more can we do before somebody does something at the top? It's just, I don't know. I don't know what else to do. It's frustrating, and like I said, the town, hopefully now this will help. But again, he's also one person. So in cases like this, he can't go himself. So he's still going to have to rely on the RCMP to go with him.
Yeah.
So,
to begin with, folks who willingly mistreat animals the way we see so unbelievably frequently is a special kind of evil. It just is. If you don't have an animal that you want to take care of as your prime responsibility, then don't have an animal, regardless of what it is, livestock all the way down to your domesticated pets. Anyway, it's extremely frustrating to me. Heather, anything else you'd like to add before we get to the news?
No, I think that's it. Like I said, I just want to thank everybody for coming out and showing their support. We will continue to advocate for these animals and any animals in the province like it. But I hope that the people that have the power to change these things do it. And, like I said, we'll just continue until something changes.
And I appreciate the effort and the time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye. And yesterday I mentioned off the top that we had to unfortunately use emergency vet care over the weekend. And again, like I admitted, I was pretty rattled when in the doctor's office, like people normally are when their pet, or in this case our puppy, was unwell, is that there was only one emergency vet care clinic operational Saturday evening on the island. Someone went on to tell me I'm wrong, but then I went and had a good close look at it. I was right. There's only one. So again, Mike Keogh called late in the program yesterday to talk about why that might be the case in the corporate quote-unquote takeover of vet services here and right across the country. I don't know how big a role that plays, but for pet owners outside the Northeast Avalon, I don't even know how you handle it. Just imagine being 5 hours, 12 hours away from the first or closest opportunity for emergency veterinarian care. All right, let's get a break. When we come back, we're talking housing and whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning, Tom. You're on the air.
Good morning, sir. How are you this morning?
Very well. How about you?
Good. I'm good. Patty, we've spoken in the past about our goal of getting some housing units at the hub, and I'm happy to report today that I'll be we'll be starting construction, I hope, at the end of this month to put those units here. And I'll be signing the MOU shortly with Newfoundland Labrador Housing. So it's taken a bit of work and a bit of time to get all this in place, but we're happy to announce that at the end of this month we'll be starting construction.
And so just describe what kind of units are going to be built here.
These are 6 bed-sitting rooms, fully accessible. They will have a common area with cooking facilities, TV room, these type of things, bathrooms. So basically 6 bed-sitting rooms, ideally for persons with disabilities, because they'll be fully accessible areas. We don't know whether or not we'll put people in there that are able to basically fend for themselves, or whether or not we'll be serving them meals or not. But those type of things we'll develop as we move through the process and as we work with Newfoundland Labrador Housing.
So is the hub going to be the operator, or is the Newfoundland Labrador Housing going to be the operator? How does that partnership work?
No, we're signing an MOU. We will be signing an MOU with Newfoundland Labrador Housing to provide the funding for us. We'll be the landlord. We'll be the people who be essentially collecting the rents and administering it and keeping everything in order as any other landlord would. Now, Newfoundland Labrador Housing may say to us that that we would like to house certain types of people in there. Well, then, of course, our goal of what we are a disability organization, so first and foremost it'll be for people with disabilities, but the level of disability and the level of care that may be needed, we'll discuss that with Newfoundland Labrador Housing.
That's where I was going to go with the level of disability. So what type of, as they call it, wraparound supports will be there for folks who do need them? Because many people in the disabled community may indeed need additional support.
Well, of course, if Newfoundland Labrador Housing says to us that they want to put people in there that we provide the meals to, of course, as you know, we have a fully operational kitchen at the hub, so they may say to us, we would like you to put people in there that can fend for themselves, need their meals, we'll have respite workers and things of this nature, then yeah, we're more than willing to do that. If they say to us, well, just go ahead and do your thing and put your tenants in there and set the rent levels and those type of things. Those are all the details we'll work out. As it sits right now, we haven't signed the MOU. We just know, having talked to the people there, having talked to the former minister, and as recently Newfoundland Labrador Housing, that is, within the last few days, the approvals are all in place. It's just a matter of putting the final touches to the MOU, and then we'll see from there exactly who the people are that we're going to be putting in there.
Congratulations on getting to this stage, Tom. Obviously, housing, whether it be for members of the disabled community or otherwise, is sorely needed here in this province. How's it going to work insofar as price?
Yeah, again, we're only going to charge what there are. If in these cases, of course, overwhelmingly, these people are funded by the government. In other words, the government sets the rent levels, and the government pays their rent. So that's what we'll be charged. And we're not in the business of making a profit here. We're in the business of just covering our costs. So if the government says to us, well, we pay $750 a month for these things, or $812, okay, great. We will live with that. Our expenses are only going to be the heat, the light, and some cleaning, and all of the things associated with that. So we're not going to go put these things in there and suddenly decide that, hey, we can license to print money here, so we're going to charge $1,500 a month. We're not going to do that. This will be low rental as to whatever government pays for people to live in these units.
I appreciate this, Tom. Keep us in the loop as you progress.
I will so. Thank you for taking my call this morning, Paddy.
Happy to do it, Tom. All the best. All right, bye-bye.
Okay.
That's good news. They've been working on that for a while at the hub. So more housing conversation obviously required in this country. One thing that I don't think it's enough focus in the world of housing is that for the first time in my memory, federal monies for housing, we don't even know how Build Canada Homes is going to work as a newly created special operating agency, and whether or not it's just another layer of bureaucracy remains to be seen. But co-op housing, co-ops have been very beneficial in a variety of arenas, whether it be in the world of agriculture. There's an interesting co-op story regarding agriculture just in Portugal called St. Philip's that I probably should have talked about earlier. Same thing when we talk about in banking, same thing when we talk about in certain areas of the fishery, but housing. And there's actual federal monies to support co-op housing development here in the country. If you ask anyone living in cooperative housing, they sing its praises for a variety of reasons. So maybe we should get someone representing the co-op group on the show again soon, Dave, to talk about how that might work. All right, let's keep going. Line number 3, Oral. I guess we'll just eavesdrop here for a bit. Oral, line number 3.
Hi.
Oral.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you, Paddy?
Doing okay this morning. How about you?
Now, Paddy, the very first ultimate thing I want to say, thank God for Paddy Dade. You know how much I appreciate what you did? You sent me a beautiful bed, by the way. Nice bed and a dresser.
I'm glad it worked out.
Oh, yeah, but see, the thing is, I was lying on a leather couch and the springs were going up and I had a bad back. Anyway, what I want to talk to you about, there'll be no names or nothing like that. And you were out in Alberta too, right?
I was, yeah.
Yes. Now, I was out there and I had I survived 2 bloodbaths and I got hit with a hammer. Now, I came down here about a year ago. I was, I got diagnosed out there anxiety and depression on the brain, right? Now, my anxiety is completely different than other people has. Mine, it was really, I thank God right now as I speak to you that I don't have it anymore hardly. I came out of it. I was on the couch for a whole year, Paddy. Couldn't walk or talk or do nothing and take care of my friend in the wheelchair at the same time, right? So anyway, I went down to the hospital and they waited me 9 hours and he wanted me to talk about all my childhood days, everything that happened to me just to get 2 old lousy old Ativan. I think that's disgusting and it's disgraceful. And they knew I was sick, Paddy. Because I was sick for 7 years now. My wife died in my arms out in Alberta. I lived in the north side of the city. And I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, Paddy. You don't know how much I appreciate what you did for me.
Happy to help, Oral. I'm glad it worked out, and I hope you're doing okay. And hopefully the back gets a little bit better.
Paddy, you know what? Every time I see you down the army every now and again, and every time I see you, I think, God, I'd love for him to be out the Confederation, but he'll do a better job.
I guess that remains to be seen, but yeah, that's not in the cards for me, I don't think, Oral. But
Paddy, my Paddy, you're a good guy. You're a good guy. You help people. Does that mean this earth helps people, Paddy?
Yeah, I guess it depends on who you ask, whether or not I'm a good guy. Yeah. But I try to be.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I love your show. I don't miss your show. I even put it on again at 11 o'clock before I go to bed. And I'll go, yabba dabba do. Bill Sweden. I love Bill. So anyway, I just want to say that. And, the doctor knew I was sick, and he gave me pills and drove me right into a bad attack. And I was going to either phone the ambulance or just give up on life altogether. But thank God I came out of it. And on the pills, the side effects of medication, Paddy, right? Okay, now the side effects of these and antidepressants are called, I don't like talking like this, suicide and stuff like that, eh? I don't even like going in that area of life, right? I'm a happy camper, right? You know what I mean?
I'm glad to hear it, and I hope you'll be happier with the new dresser and bed. Last word to you before I got to get going.
Yeah, can you play a song for me or something, Paddy?
Yeah, we don't play music here on this program, but you give me a request.
George Jones.
What tune?
George Jones. Anything from George Jones, I love them.
Yeah, I'll see if we can't get Claudette to pop on a little George Jones here this afternoon for you.
There you go.
No problem.
Thank you, Paddy. Paddy, have a nice day now, and I really appreciate what you did, buddy.
My pleasure. You take good care.
Yeah, thanks, Paddy.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. We'll see if we can't get Claudette or maybe O'Connell in the cabin party can blast a little George Jones out there for you. Just very quickly before we get to the break. Look, we know, and we're lucky enough or fortunate enough to have, a lot of listeners in Alberta, and maybe people originally from here. And every now and then I wonder if these are coordinated email campaigns, but man, oh man, just bombarded with emails this morning. I know that Russell Powers had on Dale Lamb, the president of the NLTA, and they did talk about Alberta and the teachers being legislated back to work and the notwithstanding clause so that it can't be challenged in court for the duration of the contract, which is 4 years. There's lots of organised labour concerns here in this country, whether it be the feds in Section 107 with the rail workers, the port workers, Air Canada flight attendants, Canada Post. Same thing in Alberta. And now I'm getting hammered with the separation referendum that may or may not happen and pipeline stuff and what have you. And I suppose if you want to talk about it, emails are great. Phone calls are better. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2, say more to the Secretary-Treasurer at the FFAW, Unifor. That's Jamie Baker. Hi, Jamie. You're on the air.
Good morning, sir. How are you this morning?
Great today. How about you?
Great. We always have lots of interesting and fun topics to talk about when we get in touch. Today, it seems like we're going to talk about seals, that age-old lightning rod in our province.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how it took, for something research to be done by the Marine Institute and partners and to be published in the Marine Ecology Progress Series journal to realize that harp seals may indeed be affecting groundfish recovery. Who knew?
Boy, seals eat fish, right? News at 11. Who could have predicted such a thing? But I think the real big piece of this is the scope of how much they're eating, right? I mean, as you noted, this thing done from 2018 to 2020, we're looking at a harp seal population of around 4 million plus that consumed 24 times more cod, halibut, and plaice than fishermen caught. I mean, that number is astronomical and finally puts into perspective what harvesters have been saying for years and years and years, that seals are actually having an impact, and, a measurable impact based on the work that's been done here.
Yeah, and I mean, I read some of the numbers off the top of the program here this morning, and those numbers of 4.4 million, that's only a head count guesstimation as old as 2020. So who knows what the real number is today. The real question here, though, Jamie, is what do we do with these numbers? Because we could have opined and given some approximate impact that harp seals are having on groundfish recovery. But now that the numbers are out and they've been published in the journal, now what?
I think they're a call to action, honestly, Patty. If you look at numbers like that, automatically you have to say, when we go into stock assessments, when we're looking at groundfish, we have to start considering the impact that seals are having on those stocks. If you don't include that in your assessment, then your assessment is just not coming close to what it should be. And, we're trying very hard on all levels here in this province to make sure our fisheries are sustainable and responsible going forward. And in order to have the full picture on any groundfish stock, then we need to be able to include the impact that seals are having. Now, how does that translate? Well, obviously we need a good management program for the animal itself, but we also need good ecosystem management to include all the measures that are part of this equation, right? It's not just about how do you control the numbers of seals, it's about how do you prosecute that sector and at the same time protect the groundfish that are around it and create that balance in the environment that's required for healthy stocks all the way through. Now, am I a scientist? No, absolutely not. But certainly when we're at the table and when we're hearing the input from harvesters on what they see, I think it's important that stuff now be considered, because if we're going to have a valuable groundfish fishery going forward, and we're going to need it, we need to make sure that all avenues are considered. And that's where this starts today with this.
Yeah, and we can talk about the science and the implication when we're conducting stock assessments, but basically this is going to end up with a political solution or just more political inaction. I don't know any other way to really interpret what's going on here. So we talk about a cull for a cull's sake, and that happens in parts of the world. I mean, they cull sea lions off the coast of California, they cull seals off of Scotland, so it's not like it can't be done. I don't think there's the political wherewithal in this country at this moment in time anyway. I don't foresee that into the future. So the only real answer here for me is simply markets, because until there's a place to sell seal and seal related products, then there's a reason why we don't take the annual quota. Your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I've been engaged in a lot of that work over the years, and I have a real passion point for it. There is absolutely great potential for this sector if we can get out of the way of the nonsense that has preceded us over the last number of years. If you want to look at, basically what's happening in this country right now, there is a lot of interest in the products that are derived from seals, whether it be meat, oil, or fur. I mean, we know about some of the local stories and some of the people in this province that are doing things. I mean, you look at, and nationally, we have the Seals and Sealing Network that I was a part of before that really has done some great work marketing. We've got companies locally that have been able to push products internationally. I very quickly would point to the Waspu brand on the West Coast, as they have some really talented people in that mix, opening up some new markets that may not have been accessible before. And I think, truthfully, when I was in Ottawa, I noticed that there was interest in seals on all three coasts, but it always comes down to that whole thing about how do you access a market that's been poisoned by people who came before it. And I think it's about the whole picture, Patty. You paint the picture of the ecological impact, of course, but you also need people to want the products. I mean, it's not enough to just say, well, there's too many seals. I mean, you're never going to want a steak because someone says there's too many cows. But if you tell me that it's a responsible product, the resource is abundant, you're harvesting it correctly, we're doing all that, by the way, everybody engaged in that is doing all that, and then you present a product that people are going to want and understand the benefits of and understand the positive impacts of, you just need the ability to tell the story. And a lot of markets that we go into, Patty, it's very difficult to tell that story because others have been there with their boundless wallets telling a different story that isn't accurate, so you kind of have to undo what's been done. But I really think that this today could be the start of that whole picture approach to getting this stuff done. The question is no longer, do you agree with a seal harvest? The question is, do you agree with a well-managed seal harvest that incorporates markets and all the things that are required for ecological sustainability in one thing? It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and if we talk about the seal meat and seal fur, that's one thing, and those disinformation campaigns have been extremely successful, and unfortunately so. If you could get seal-related omega-3 oils in Marks & Spencer and Walmart and Costco and the like, all of a sudden that seal quota would grow dramatically. I think we just kind of, for years, are focusing on the wrong thing. I mean, omega-3 oils, and it's a very unique one inside a seal, harp seals in particular, that boy, oh boy, that's the opportunity here. And I don't know why we haven't been able to seize that.
Yeah, again, it's because you're dealing with very populated markets that have already made up their mind based on misinformation. So you kind of got to put the toothpaste back in the tube in order to help them understand that. But I really think that once you start establishing the things that have been established over the last number of years, I think you really do paint a much clearer picture of what this product can do, the benefits it has, and the ability to be able to sell that to a customer who would be able to use it, enjoy it, and utilize it the way it's meant to be.
Yeah, because the mindset of folks who really lean in hard on things like omega-3 oils and the health benefits, I think there's a distinct overlap, or I'd like to see the Venn diagram with just how many of those folks are really opposed to things like the seal harvest, as opposed to the way the cattle industry is operated, as opposed to the way the poultry industry is operated. They don't take them on; they're too big, so they just punch down, which is generally the way people act on these types of circumstances. But I just wonder what politically how this harp seals report from the Marine Institute researchers is going to be heard and understood. And I know that's not something for me or you to say, but it's a good question to ask.
It certainly is, and I guarantee you we'll be very curious to see how this lands and the approaches that are taken, particularly as we start heading into the advisories on the groundfish, but also as we start talking about management plans for other species, because, you can't, we've said for years, you can't manage one species exclusively in an ecosystem. It has to be done on a multi-species basis. And now that we've established this, at least we can include them more in that equation so harvesters can have that better understanding of what impact these things are going to have on their stuff, but also it gives us an opportunity to tell a message to the world that, hey, we've got a resource here that's really, really good. It's good for you. It's good for the environment. And, man, if you could only give us a chance, we could show you something, right? It's like I think if I was working in that sector today, I'd be feeling pretty good about some of the possibilities that could come about starting with this little kind of kickoff today.
Yeah, appreciate the time as usual, Jamie. Thanks a lot.
Anytime. My pleasure, Patty.
Take care. Bye-bye. It's Jamie Baker, Secretary-Treasurer at FFAW Unifor. You wonder what the seal population in the numbers that we see off the coast, because that's just harp seals. If you add in every species of seal out there, we're, 7.5 million, somewhere in that range. At some point, there's also going to be the possibility for that population to cannibalize itself. Whether it be through some sort of disease that spreads throughout the seal population just based on numbers. Is it possible that it's quote-unquote right sizes itself? But look, we've got the harp seal report. And now who in any position of authority is going to speak to it, and what are they going to say? It's a good question. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Juanita, you're on the air.
How are you doing, Patty?
I'm okay, thank you. How about you?
Oh, good. I have to call in. I have to agree with Oral. You're one, I think, was the second, third caller, or whatever. You're so nice. You're so compassionate and understanding. And my sister and I says every day that you're not on, what are we going to do? You're so excellent. And I love you so much.
I really appreciate that, Juanita. Thanks a lot.
You are the best. The best. I was doing an email, of course, and I couldn't word it right, so I said I'm going to have to call in. And of course, Dave asked to go on the line, right? So.
And I'm glad you did. It's very kind of you. I appreciate you tuning in and your time this morning.
Oh, you're kindly welcome. Listen, I don't know what to do without you, Patty. You're excellent. Love you so much.
Stay in touch, Juanita. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Let's keep going. Let's go to line number 5. Matthew, you're on the air.
Hey, how you doing?
Great today. You?
Been better. I lost one of my golf clubs, putter, at Valley Haley Golf Course 2 days ago, and no one turned it in. It's a really expensive putter, and I know it's probably doesn't sound like a very serious issue to most people, but it's going to cost me, like, if I got to buy a new one, it's going to cost me like $500 or $600 to replace it. So I just wanted to put my phone number out there. If anyone did happen to pick it up, my phone number is 709-685-7697, and I would really appreciate it if I could get that putter back. It's not going to be any good to anyone else besides me, so if you could help me with that, that would be great.
Yeah, so unfortunately no one's turned it into the back shop, which is, I don't know, it's a real drag. Clubs can be expensive, putters in particular. Do you want to tell me what brand of putter it is?
Sure, it's not a common brand name. It's called Argolf, ARGOLF, and it also has some sticker. It has Golf Canada stickers on it. I'm not sure. I don't think my name is on the stickers, but it might be. But either way, it would be nice to get it back.
Yeah, I hope you get it back. Are you a good putter?
Not really.
I'm a terrible putter. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I think we all are. Yeah, and I'm probably going to be even worse if I got to use my 3-iron.
Yeah, I mean, back when we used to play a lot of golf in the 90s, I was a reasonable putter. And now it's like a bomb detonates every time the putter head approaches the ball. It's just mind-boggling how terrible it is. Matthew, how was your golf season?
Wasn't great. I mostly just did a lot of practicing. I couldn't afford to get a membership or anything this season, so but I did practice almost every single day with my putter, so it's worth more than the cost of the putter itself, because I put so much time into it.
Well, listen, fingers crossed you get it back. I appreciate your time. We do have your telephone number, so whoever picked up Matthew's putter, do us all a solid. And even if you just drop it at the back shop so that Matthew can check in, in the next day or two to see whether or not they have it, and hopefully that's the case. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patty.
No problem.
Love you.
You too, pal. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, golf's expensive, right? Golf clubs can be wicked expensive. I mean, I have a relatively cheap putter. Why? Because an expensive putter probably won't make the ball go in the hole any more frequently for me, just given how terrible I am. Man, let's go to line number 2. Say good morning to Darren Halloran with Always in Vogue. Good morning, Darren. You're on the air.
Morning, Patty. How you doing?
Best kind. How about you?
Oh, not too bad. I'm out on the West Coast here now. We've got a store set up at the Bloomington Golf Course. And I just wanted to give a quick call. I heard Jamie on there a little while ago, and, well-spoken. When you start talking about the seal industry, there's nobody more passionate than myself and Always in Vogue. So I just wanted to give him a shout-out. He did a great job. And, we do carry Waspu seal oil and pet oil at Always in Vogue. So it's a great company, and they are doing great things, opening great markets. I just wanted to give you a little bit of notice. We lost our Facebook page. We had almost 100,000 followers, and we were always very successful with the Seal Poppy campaign. This is our 6th year. We're hoping to raise $120,000. But Meta took away our Facebook page, so we're having a bit of a struggle getting it out there this year, so I figured no better way to do it than to give you a call. So our new Facebook page is AIV, and you can search it up there, but we are selling the poppies in store and out of the West Coast at the Bloomington Golf Course this week, and we're just trying to give a last-minute push to finish our goal for the season.
So you say you're trying to raise $120,000, and what becomes of the $120,000?
So we raise $20,000 every year. So if we get to our $20,000 goal this year, we will have reached $120,000 over the last 6 years.
Very well.
Sorry, sorry. I'm a little caught up on losing our Facebook page from Meta. But anyway, we're hoping to raise another $20,000 this year, but we have had a little bit of a struggle where we have lost the page, and that's usually where we do most of our communication through. So we are set up. We do have a full store out here at the Bloomington Golf Course on the West Coast, and we do have the poppies with us. Usually every year when we come out here, we're already sold out, so we don't get to bring them out here and give them that opportunity. But you can also get them at our store at 167 Water Street.
Fair enough. And what was I going to ask? Oh, yeah. How'd you lose your Facebook page? Did they give you a reason, or is it about the sealed products itself, or what's going on?
Short version is we had a influencer go on TikTok talking about Vogue, and they said Vogue so many times that we got Vogue magazine's attention, and they reported us. So I'm working now to get it back. It was an innocent mistake, but right now they've reached out and suspended our page. So we've started a new one. We're hoping to build it back up. We've had a lot of loyal people following us over the years, and it hurts, especially this time of year, for them not to be able to follow our page and see what we have going on, especially when we're trying to raise money for the Royal Canadian Legion.
Yeah, it's too bad. I mean, it's remarkable when you stand back and look at how these social media giants actually operate. And, they talk about the town square for free speech, and these guys are so full of crap, it's not even funny. They'll lean on what they like, and what they don't support, they will squash. It's just disgraceful.
Yes. Yeah.
Darren,
it was hurtful.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it was hurtful for sure, and we have great followings and a lot of loyal customers. We're going on our 65th year right now, so we want everybody to be able to get the poppies and of course see our products this time of year. So to lose that page was terrible, but more importantly, we want to use whatever way we can to get out there right now and let people know that they are available, and we still are selling them and hoping to raise that $20,000.
And how much are they? I guess I should ask.
Either $20 each, and 100% of the proceeds goes to the Royal Canadian Poppy Fund.
Good on you for doing it, and good luck in the quest for $20,000 again this year. Good on you, Darren.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Patty.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. I mean, it's a very generous campaign. I mean, obviously the money goes a long way for the operations at the Royal Canadian Legions. I don't know if I can speak to it with any real authority, but I don't know how strong membership might be these days. And then, like many places, many organizations, COVID was a problem when people weren't able to rent the space and all that goes with it. So if you're so inclined, you'd like to have that seal poppy, which can last you for year over year over year, forevermore, and the money goes directly to the Royal Canadian Legion, you can give that some consideration. Let's go ahead and get a break in. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number one and say good morning to our friend of the show, veterinarian Dr. Maggie Brown-Burry. And good morning, doctor. You're on the air.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm very well, thanks. How about you?
Not too bad. Keeping busy.
Yeah, no doubt you are. So, as I've told the listeners here, over the weekend, Saturday evening to be specific, we had to unfortunately avail of some emergency vet care. And again, I was rattled when we were in the doctor's office at the time, but I'm pretty sure Dr. Daw said at that very moment she was the only vet offering emergency care anywhere on the island on Saturday evening. How does the emergency system work here in veterinary care?
So the way our bylaws work for clinics in Newfoundland and Labrador is that a clinic is responsible for out-of-hours services for their own clients. So the only true emergency clinic is the Veterinary Specialty Center in St. John's, and they unfortunately just are unable to be staffed 7 days a week, so they are only available from Sunday morning to Friday morning. The clinics in the St. John's area or in the Avalon area, they've joined together to rotate through, and they fill that gap from Friday morning to Sunday morning. Outside of the Avalon, a lot of clinics are struggling with doctor shortages, and so depending on the day of the week, there may or may not be a doctor in clinic. There's always going to be some form of out-of-hours care. Sometimes that's going to be telemedicine, which unfortunately for some emergencies that's not going to be enough, and they'll get directed to St. John's.
Yeah, so we did indeed do some telephone triage before we got a text message, which really knocked me off my chair saying, emergency, you have to go to the clinic. So what happens if, for instance, if that Freshwater Road Clinic was the only one operating Saturday evening and you try to get some phone triage and or telemedicine help and you're told it's an emergency, then what? Like I say, if I'm in Grand Falls, Windsor.
Yeah, and so I have covered for clinics in the Avalon on Saturdays, and basically what happens is that triage service will call us and say, this is what's going on, this is where they are we able to see them? And luckily, we usually can find some way to accommodate them, especially if they're coming from Central or further, because it's going to be a few hours before they get there so that we can prepare. But unfortunately, the reality is, if you have an emergency or you're worried about your pet, the first thing you do is call your regular clinic, and you should be directed from that phone number. If the situation is where you are, there is no veterinarians in a hospital to see your pet in person, and you really need that level of care, then unfortunately they're going to redirect you to St. John's. And on Saturday, that will be that one clinic that's covering for the area, and it is always sort of a worry on our mind as doctors that we could be so busy that we are unable to provide all the care that is being asked of us.
Has this changed in the recent past? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it has, and so far it hasn't been. It hasn't been a situation where there's things that need like life-saving care in the St. John's area haven't been able to receive it, but it's been a while now. I think it's been almost probably a year since the Veterinary Specialty Center had to really reduce their hours, and the clinics in the Avalon, they came together and came up with a plan to sort of fill those gaps. The gap has actually gotten a lot smaller. They used to not be available for the entire weekend, and a few months ago they started being open as a Sunday morning. So the gap has gotten smaller. It's not going to get any smaller until they can hire a few more doctors. And unfortunately, the reality is, to do in-person, hands-on care, you need a person. And a veterinarian is still a human. They can only work so many hours before they start to make mistakes because of sleep deprivation. So we're trying to do the best with the doctors that we have. So Friday nights and Saturday, you're getting a doctor who works at a general practice during the week, and they've set up a rotation so that it's not always the same doctor being working that extra day, so that they're at their best. But the reality is, right now, from Friday morning to Sunday morning, there is no emergency clinic on the island of Newfoundland.
It's amazing. So by hearing what you just said then, it's more about the access to a doctor than what people point to as the possibility for the so-called corporate concentration in the world of veterinarian care. So can you speak to what's going on that front? Because I bet you a lot of people don't know. You see a clinic and it's whatever clinic or wherever in the province, and it used to be owned by the doctor and or some of the technicians or whatever, and now it's owned by a bigger corporation that may not be based in this province. What can you tell us about the corporate world here in vet care?
Yes, the corporatization of vet medicine is something that's been going on for a while, and it was inevitable. It's been happening around the world, globally. In Europe, it was happening a lot sooner than it was happening here. It's definitely happening in the States. And basically what that is these conglomerates or veterinary practice networks are just sort of buying up practices so they're all under one umbrella. It does help on one hand because it means that they have resources that they can pool. So if one clinic is short on staff or doctors, they may be able to pull some staff or doctors from one of their other clinics. The challenge, of course, in Newfoundland is we only have so many clinics, and so if they're trying to pull from their other clinics, they're pulling from out of province, which is not always easy. And the reality is, unfortunately, is if the corporate owns the clinic, the owners aren't veterinarians. And that means that if they don't have veterinarians on staff, they can't step up and fill that gap. And that's the big difference is when we had clinics that were owned by the veterinarian, that veterinarian would have to take on that responsibility because they were a doctor. So now there's no veterinary owner. You don't have someone who could step in and fill those gaps, and that's part of the reason why we are seeing some of these gaps in services is because now it's entirely dependent on who's employed. And there's upsides and downsides to the corporatization. There is increased resources available, but it also means that there's someone out of province making all the decisions, which is not always ideal.
Yeah, and I mean, unlike because big corporations, nameless and faceless, and no one to actually reach out and speak to or touch when you have any level of concern. So what has this corporatization meant for quality and level of care and then cost of services?
And so that's going to vary a lot from clinic to clinic because the team inside the clinic still matters. And so if there's a concern or there's changes that need to be made, there's still going to be an in-hospital manager, and that responsibility to sort of coordinate with the sort of corporate overseers and make those changes falls on their shoulders. So that's why I'm not going to name one corporate or that corporate is better or worse, because it all comes down to the team inside the hospital. There definitely, my experience has been, if you're in a clinic in Newfoundland and the corporate that has purchased it and is now in charge, and they have never had a clinic in Newfoundland, they may not realize how our inventory works differently. It takes longer for us to get new inventory in than it would for a clinic in Ontario. So there has sometimes been some issues with supplies and costs in that way because they have to adjust their business model because of the way Newfoundland has to function being an island.
You and I have had this conversation in the past, but let's have it again. And it's the cost of vet care and the different price in different clinics for the same services. So you hear people complain about this all the time, but my emotions were running so wild on Saturday night that I would have paid whatever. It kind of felt like at the moment anyway. So why, for our listeners, why is it so expensive for even like blood work? It was $1,000 bill. So help us understand why it is so expensive to get care for your pet.
So it is a sort of multifactorial problem. Everything's getting more expensive, and that includes our supplies, and that includes the cost of living for our staff. So we have to pay them more so that they can continue to work for us, but also continue to afford groceries and their rent. So the cost of doing business has gone up, and unfortunately, we're all in this because we love animals, but a veterinary clinic is a private business. We have to make ends meet. So if the cost of doing business becomes more expensive, the cost of services is going to become more expensive. Another factor that comes into it when it comes to emergency services on the weekend is these clinics are asking their staff who already work full-time to work a little extra, and they're going to want to be able to pay them extra, compensate them well for doing that, which means that emergency services are going to have to be more expensive so that they are not basically losing money by being available for emergencies, because in the long run, that's not sustainable.
Even in, say, dental care, I know it's not the same thing, but in dental care, there's an actual cost chart, and that's used basically because insurance companies are receiving claims from dentist offices. Now, some of that's changed with the national program. Is there not an opportunity, or has it ever been tried, to regulate vet services and have an across-the-board same charge for a blood work or this exam or this shot or what have you?
Yeah, the big difference is there's no government involvement when it comes to veterinary clinics. So these are private businesses. So if they all were charging the same thing across the board, that's not really allowed on a business side. So there's a fine line between what is having a standard or having a set fixed price. There are resources for clinic owners about what are the cost of certain procedures in your region, so that you can kind of see, okay, are we really above the average here? Are we really below the average? And that is available to practice owners, so they can kind of look at that and make decisions that way. But then they also have to look at, what does it cost to live where my clinic is? So how much am I paying my staff? Do I have new equipment, which I have to pay off, or am I using a lot of old equipment? There's a lot of variety in cost because there's a lot of variety of business expenses behind the scenes. Like a clinic that's brand new, they have a lot of debt. All their equipment might be new. They might be charging a bit more because they can't absorb as much cost as a clinic that's been open for a long time and is using equipment that's totally paid off.
Last one, it's not necessarily your bailiwick, but it might end up being, and we had some conversations in the recent past about who enforces the Animal Health and Protection Act, because when it's not enforced properly and animals are mistreated, inevitably they might end up in your clinic. So any thoughts on how it seems so flimsily approached and enforced?
So the Animal Health and Protection Act is a law, and so the law enforcement officers are going to be who can enforce that. If, as a veterinarian, I have a concern with an animal or a situation, I would reach out to the chief veterinary officer and their office to sort of get guidance, and generally speaking, they connect me with an RNC officer, depending on where I'm working at the time, to sort of handle the case, but it does become a law enforcement issue.
Yeah, so you would...
And it's just...
So you'd be doing reporting?
Is how, yeah, I would do the reporting and then be connected with an officer who would take over the case as far as the law goes.
Yeah, fair enough. It's like when you recognise potential child abuse in an emergency room and the same requirements by law. Dr. Brown-Burry, always appreciate your time. Thanks for doing it.
You're very welcome.
Take care. Bye-bye. That's a generous amount of time offered by Dr. Maggie Brown-Burry. So there's a lot to that. And I do see it once again in the corner of my eye, someone saying, ask her about insurance, whether or not they think it's a good idea. I don't even know if that's the right question for a vet, considering that, we don't even know if there's any sort of upside for one clinic or another to try to push the Trupanion plans or what have you. So I don't really know how that works financially or monetarily speaking. So I just purposefully left that alone. All right, today's a good day to join us on the show. Man, I just looked out the window here. It is pitch black in St. John's. Ominous signs for what's to come here at some point today. All right, if you're in and around town, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. We're taking a break and then we're coming back.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number one. Jason, you're on the air.
Hello, Patty.
Hi there.
I wanted to talk about the vets.
Okay.
My dog passed in September. He was 19 years old. That's pretty old for a dog. Now, I wanted to get him put down because he couldn't walk and he was pooping everywhere. He was just suffering at the time. So I phoned Steamville. They wanted $500 to put him down. So I said, well, that's a lot of money. So I phoned Cornerbrook. Cornerbrook wanted $240. I said, perfect. I said, I'll call you right back. And from Wednesday to Friday, it just kept going to the emerge. If this is an emergency, call this number. They had my number, and they wanted me to go to the emerge. They would not answer their phones. So he ended up dying in the chair on Sunday. So they want to bring up cruelty to animals. They should be brought up first. Another thing is with the seals. Now, you had FFAW on there saying that the harvesters knew this for years. So he must have had closed ears. How come they don't have it right now to where a person can go buy a seal license and then we can harvest our own? Would make a lot of sense.
Why can't you get a seal license?
If you buy a seal, you can buy a seal license.
Okay, I'm sorry. Maybe I missed the point. If you want to start that again, please.
For seals, you said there's too many seals, right?
That's the assertion, yep.
Okay, how come we can't get a seal license like a moose license? And we can harvest our own? Because if you go buy seal oil, that's not real seal oil. That's a little bit of seal oil and olive oil and stuff. Right? It's all broken down. Like, I like seal flippers, seal heart is all good. If they want to get rid of a few, why can't they just give out a few licenses and they make money on their licenses?
So I don't know a whole lot about getting a seal harvest license, but is it really that complicated? I think you probably have to have firearms certification or firearms education certification, I guess they call it. Then you just apply through the national licensing system. And I think you have to be 18. But is there anything more to it? That's an honest question because I don't know.
I don't know because I never even heard of this. Like usually you get a moose license, you file for it. Or if you want a rabbit license, you just buy it at the store. So it doesn't make much sense to me.
Yeah,
because when you buy your moose license, they had a coyote license onto it.
Yeah.
For a bounty on a coyote. Oh, who's stupid enough to go in the woods and shoot a coyote when you're there for the moose? You're going to scare the moose away. So now you got it on your rabbit license, and then they jacked up the price a little bit. So why can't they have it with a seal? If you can moose hunt, you can seal hunt. Obviously, you have a PAL or an FAC. So why can't they just have licenses at the post office or at a corner store, like any other license?
I think inside what's the right words here? So the marine mammal regulations is what the seal harvest is governed by, which I think is a different set of circumstances than provincial jurisdiction regarding a moose license or a small game license. I think that might be the difference there, because it is a national body that you have to apply to for a seal license.
Yes, because you would be down on the beach. It would be like tour hunting. You're on the water. Either you're going to shoot it, you're going to club it, or you're going to spear it. But nobody wants to see that. That's what Pamela Anderson, their Baywatch, she come down and had a big protest about it, and then 3 days later wearing a fur coat.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the world of hypocrisy is running amok. There's no doubt about that. And I'm coming from a position of ignorance regarding a seal license. What I just said about the process is what I know. But your thoughts on, how come I can't get a license as simply as I can get one to go salmon fishing? That's a good question. I don't know the answer.
I'd like to see the FFAW or DFO come up with an answer for that.
Yeah, that would be a DFO issue because it is federal legislation. The marine mammal regulations are federal. So that would be a DFO-related question, which I'm happy to try to get an answer to it because I honestly don't know.
It would be nice if you could.
Yeah, let me see if I can give it a shot. No problem.
Thank you very much.
No problem at all. Thanks, Jason.
Have a great day.
You too.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I mean, I really don't know what the answer is there, but it's a interesting question. I do think because it has a requirement for firearm safety education and certification, that probably plays a role because that's once again a federal issue as far as I know. So anyone else who's out there who knows more about the moose licenses, small game licenses, coyote licenses, salmon angling licenses, and how that compares or contrasts to a license to be involved in the seal harvest. I'm not even sure if you're allowed to take a seal from the beach, are you? That's another good question. I don't think you are. It's like you're not allowed to take a moose from the road. But I think there are some roadside specific licenses for what they call problem animals. That would be included so insofar as how farmers deal with what they refer to as problem animals. But the reason the coyote license is on, as I'm told by experienced hunters, is that that's more of an after the fact. You got your moose, and if you want to bring in a couple of these coyote, I think you bring the skull in, if I'm not mistaken, and get your $50 or whatever the number is. But of course, for people to go specifically for only coyotes, we hear all the time that the bounty simply doesn't justify the cost of the time to try to help control the coyote population. All right, let's get to the break. When we come back, Ted's in the queue to talk about seal licenses. He probably knows way more than I do, which doesn't take a lot. And then we're going to speak with you on a topic of your choosing. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 1. Ted, you're on the air.
Hello, Paddy. Just listening to a fellow talking about getting seal licenses.
Yeah.
I guess kind of tying it to the way do you get a moose or rabbit license. About 7 or 8 years ago, more out of curiosity, I just went to see what it would take to get a seal license. There's a special course that the fisheries puts off to teach you how to kill a seal, what to do with them. If you shoot him or whatever else goes on, and then the whole process of how you make sure the thing is dead and what you got to do is kind of a bit gruesome. And then when you go, and I don't know if there's a written test, I don't remember that far back, when you get your license, it's more like an apprentice thing. I couldn't go on my own. I had to go with someone who was a certified, I guess, seal harvester, someone who had a license for years. So it's as much as it should be simple, it's not very simple.
Yeah, I mean, since the call came in, plenty of feedback. Here's one email. You can buy licenses. And I thought so. Then the next one. Yes, members of the public can obtain a personal use seal license in the province. Specific criteria, Then some, they break it down. One is commercial, one is a personal use seal license. So I guess there's two different licenses out there.
Well, it was the personal use one that I did the training for. It's I don't know, several hours, I guess, 2 or 3, 4 hours with DFO, and we're going through all this, I guess, how to harvest a seal, what you do with them, if you shoot them, what the requirements are so that you won't be charged with cruelty when they come and check the carcass. And then I can, I'm not sure how many seals I could take with that, but again, I couldn't go on my own. I had to go with a professional seal harvester. So it's kind of complicated.
Yeah, obviously so. I'm gonna guess at least a dozen emails about seal licenses all of a sudden, which doesn't surprise me because who knows what's going to pique the interest of a caller. But I'm going to try to understand in full the two different licenses and the different processes for getting it. And I'm glad you made time for the show.
Okay, sure. Well, you check with the DFO website on it, and I guess they'll lead you through whatever you need to do.
I'll see what I can figure out. I appreciate your time, Ted.
Okay, Patty. Bye.
Bye-bye. And, there was mention migratory birds, and, of course, that's also federal legislation. The Migratory Bird Act is a federal laws included. And, yes, you can buy those licenses locally. And apparently for a personal use sea license, you can also buy it locally. The commercial implications are, of course, different, and that makes sense to me. Okay, let's keep going here. Let's go to line number 2. Brian, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you?
Couldn't be better. How about you?
Pretty good. I just want to talk about the end of the World Series.
Sure.
60 years ago, and this is going to give away who I am, and I don't care. 60 years ago, we used to play baseball on Bannerman Street. Bannerman Street baseball. We'd use a broken off broom handle and a rubber ball. And we used to implement rules. If you hit the ball over someone's roof, it was a home run. The only way a player would be taken out of the game if his mother came to the window and said, "Supper is ready," and we'd lose the player. And I forgot those days until the Blue Jays were in the World Series here. My God, the MLB, a major league, million, if not trillion-dollar operation, was doing the same things. They were implementing along the way. What do I mean? Well, first of all, we learn that if Shohei Ohtani is a pitcher and is taken out of the game, he can remain in as a designated hitter. All the other players, for example, a catcher, if he hits the ball, gets to first base, and he has a designated runner, he's taken out of the game. He doesn't get to play again. Mm-hmm. On the championship game, Buck Martinez, who I respect a lot, I was very happy when they had that stand up for cancer, and his buddies had such good things to say about Buck because of his cancer difficulties. He pointed out that when Shohei Ohtani was on a base prior to having to go in and pitch, he was on a base and the inning came to an end. He went into the dugout and they had to wait 2 minutes for him to come out so they could start the inning. Again, implementing by the MLB and the umpires. That's the way we played Bannerman Street baseball. And I never, ever thought that a major operation had implemented what we did 60 years ago. Patty, I thought it was ridiculous. Yes, we respect Shohei Ohtani. Yes, we respect Yamamoto. I think was the World Series MVP, wasn't he?
Yamamoto was. Yeah, he got 3 wins, all road wins. Remarkable.
remarkable. But Shoei was showing special treatment.
He was.
And I think that was it took Buck Martinez, who I not always agreed with, who did speak up, and he said they're giving him extra time and it's not fair. And I agree with it. So I learned a lot. I learned that our little baseball league on Bannerman Street Baseball, our ideas were adopted by MLB. I think they owe us money. I think they owe Bannerman Street money. So the end of the baseball was too bad. Toronto came within a hair's breadth of winning the title. My condolences to all the Toronto Blue Jays fans. I didn't think they were going to do it, and they never did. But I think that the MLB is going to have to go back to scratch and start over again with their rules and regulations. I'm going to let you go now, Paddy. Thank you very, very much. And even though I'm not a seal hunter myself, have a good seal hunting season.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate your time. All right, bye-bye. Look, the Ohtani issue is real. So the umpires have some discretion, but in the regular season, after the final out, 2-minute timer starts to tick down. At 25 seconds, the umpire tells you it's your final warm-up pitch. At 20 seconds, the batter's got to be in the box. And at 0 seconds, the pitcher's got to start the motion to the plate. And we all know the pitch clock is new. If the pitcher's on base, for instance, and this is no longer really a thing because they've done away with, National League, the pitcher's hit, and American League is designated hitter. And yes, the special circumstance, as they refer to it, gives Ohtani a little bit of breathing time, but the rules still should apply. If he wants to be a pitcher and hitter in the same game, good for him. I mean, he's a unicorn. Best baseball player I've ever seen. But we still got to apply the rules. Catching your breath is part of the game, and catching your breath is also part of how you can actually compete and to be at your best. Giving him extra time seemed pretty unfair to me, but anyway, I'm not in the mood to make excuses for how and why they lost. They made bad base running errors and some bad decisions. And bullpen couldn't keep the ball in the ballpark. It's not very complicated at some point. Let's go to line number 3. Mike, David, I can't hit Mike there. Can you put line 3 on for me? Mike, you're on the air.
Yeah, good morning, Paddy.
Good morning to you.
Paddy, I want to talk about the vet, but I'd also like to talk about the seal licenses.
Sure.
But very quickly on the veterinarian, I got a bad impression from listening to Mrs. about the duties and that, like, of a veterinarian. That she came across to me as like veterinarians want to work 8 to 5 and have all their weekends off and that and whatever. And like, I was in the service industry for 50 odd years, and I never refused an hour of overtime. I worked all the different holidays, the different years, and it was something that I told people and apprentices that came into the industry, look, if you're not prepared to work Saturdays, Sundays, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, you name it, then don't get involved into the business if you're in the service industry. This is what it requires. And it seems like they want to only work 5 days a week and then collect 1,000% on the drugs. Like, we had drugs a while ago. My wife went. We got one dog there now. It's costing us $200 a month. And they never had the pills available anyway. That would cost over $200. So they said, we'll give you a prescription to go to the drugstore. Went to the drugstore. What was costing us over $200 was a little over $20. So there's the extremes about it. And to me, I just didn't like her attitude. But anyway, that was the way that I took of what she was saying. And as far as I'm concerned, when you're in the service industry, it's not a scheduled life. It's subject to all of these interruptions in your lifestyle, and is either accept it or get out of it, as far as I'm concerned.
It kind of depends the industry we're talking about here, because in large part, I agree with people who need and want some time off, even if we're talking about being at your absolute best. Like as a nurse or a doctor, these really long, extended shifts, at some point we're talking about patient safety. Same thing I would assume for a vet, and even someone like a correctional officer on a 24-hour shift. It's a pretty dangerous job, so there's some differences, I think, think, like I worked in the hospitality industry, and we had really disjointed shifts. Go to work at 7 a.m., you're sent home at 10:30, you come back at 5 o'clock, and you work till whenever the work is done, and it is unpredictable and it's busy. But I think there's a difference in me shagging up your order as a waiter versus shagging up your treatment as a doctor or a nurse or what have you.
Anyway, on the seal industry. I had a fishing license, part-time fishing license, since I was back in teenage years. And I had a professional sealer's license. I had it all taken away from me because they turned it over to the union. They took away my part-time fishing license, even though a fisherman could become a part-time worker in my trade. They took away my sealer's license after 30, 40 years or something. I had it because I had to be a professional fisherman, and the federal government turned it over to the regulation of it to the union. So I couldn't get into the union. They would not give me a license back, for professional license, and I lost my license. I lost my part-time fishing license because I thought I kept it up because I said if I ever retires, I might want to offset my income. But when the seals went highly valuable and there was a lot of money to be made, greed got into the fishermen and into the union, and they took it over. So in order for you to get a professional seal license today, you've got to be, first of all, a professional fisherman, and then it's regulated. But as far as I'm concerned, it's not right. Like I said before, my argument before when they took it away from me is that if a fisherman can get a part-time license as a tradesman or whatever, why can't I get a part-time fishing license? It's not fair what they're doing, not equal or nothing else. And basically, they're now the way the sealing industry is regulated. You've got to be into the union, and you're not getting into the union other than your full-time fishermen. So there's very few people going to have a professional seal license in the very near future, unless something has changed. So, like I said, I experienced it all. I went through it all. And the professional is entirely different from the recreational fishery, where you tend to go to the course, you allow 5 seals and this stuff. But then again, most of the times, if you're not a professional, the pelts go to waste. So, it's a mess. And it's all been caused by the greed of the fishermen and the union and the federal government wanting to get out of it, to discharge their duties of what they were to regulate this industry.
Fair enough, Mike. I'll get to the news. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
Okay. I have no idea what's going on in the queue, but certainly plenty of time left for you right after this. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning, Art. You're on the air.
Yes, Paddy. How are you today?
Couldn't be better. How about you?
Not bad. Paddy, I'm 75-year-old, and I fished all my life, and I never had a fishing license in my life. But he got on my nerves when he phoned in. He had a part-time fishing license. Should never have it. I fished all my life. I was 75. I've been under draggers, under stern drivers, side drivers, boats, outboards and racks, everywhere. I fished all my life.
So you didn't have your own enterprise. You worked on the draggers, for instance. Whoever owns that would have had a license to operate the dragger, right?
Yeah. But I never had a fishing license in my life, even with my father. I fished with my uncle, I fished with my brother, I fished with everybody. And I never had a fishing license. I never held one.
Fair enough. So you think that people should be able to engage in the commercial fishery without a license?
Sure they should. That's only scammery. That's all that is. Money paid out for no reason. A fishery was always there. It was free for the people. Free to catch. My father never had a fishing license catching fish on the other trap. And he fished for the last 25, 30 years, And he's like, I'm in middle living at all the time. Was 10 of us in family. And he made a living for all of us. You know, I don't understand this license bit for everything. Seal, everything. License to get this, license to get that. Shouldn't have to get a license to get nothing. The government got all to do with all that. There's our money we're giving to the government to catch our own livelihood.
I understand. I don't know if it's in everyone's best interest if it was the Wild Wild West insofar as participating in the commercial fishery, but even if we take that back to the recreational food fishery, the handcuffs on the people of the province there is absolutely an issue that we talk about a lot here on the show.
Yes, because you're only allowed 5 fish. You go, you got a boat, you buy a license for your boat, and then you got to catch 5 fish, and then you come in, and the wildlife is there at the work, standing up ready to give you a ticket. Should never be. We're paying them to give them a job. The world is gone. That's why the world is like it is. That Trump down the States telling us what to do in Canada. Should never be. Free trade is free trade.
Yeah, I mean, that's an entirely different conversation I'm happy to have, but this tariff-based trade war stuff is just unnecessary chaos. It just is.
It is.
I don't care who thinks different.
It's driving everybody off their head because he's there saying this 1 minute, next minute he's saying something else. And then we got Ford in Toronto, he's saying something, then what the United States is saying, you should never put that on. It's something wrong with this world.
There's
Big
no
times
argument there. Yep.
Big times as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's certainly a tinderbox these days. No argument there.
You got that right as a tinderbox because I've been Toronto everywhere for working. I worked all my life. I never had to get no permits, no nothing, for nothing. I went and found work when I wanted to, and if anybody's too lazy to work, that's their fault. If there's somebody on welfare, I do not criticize them, but that's up to them entirely. My taxes paying for, but that's up to them.
Fair enough. Art, I appreciate the time. Anything else you want to say this morning?
No, thank you.
No problem at all. Welcome to the show. Anytime. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You know, my father was a fisherman when he was young. I have no idea if he had a commercial fishing license at the time. I really don't know. I don't even know if it was a thing, to be honest with you. I mean, my father was born in 1927, so he would have been fishing as a very young boy. I mean, like many people would be able to tell the same story. Now, Dad's been gone quite a long time at this point, but like left school in grade 3, went fishing with his dad, eventually had his own boat and fished, I don't know, into his 20s, where then he went on to other pursuits here. But, you know, of course, every time we bring up the recreational food fishery, you get some immediate reaction. Remember this year, we wait again for DFO to release the same information about 39 days and the same rules for bag limits and all the rest of it, just to be told that for next summer and fall recreational food fishery, there's going to be some form of consultation apparently prior to announcements. So whether or not that means there's going to be any actual changes in dates or days or bag limits, or I guess that's not the right phrase, bag limits, but the number of fish you can take. And remember, there's so much confusion out there on that one because it's really just a policy. It's not a law. And we've been told, even through a DFO-related email, that the 5 fish per person, 15 per boat, is the policy they want people to abide by. And if and when they see people not abiding by it, they have the rights to change the rules to reduce the number you can take. But it was only ever a policy. If you had 5 people on a boat that was conducive to having 5 people on it, then you could take 5 each. You weren't going to get in any trouble. You weren't going to be fined. You weren't going to be arrested. But, of course, then people who take advantage of it, and you know the ones, and I got a couple of buddies who are at it all the time. They'll go out multiple times per day and get their 15, and they're at it all the time. And I would imagine there's a fair amount of freezer burnt cod that they throw away every spring, too, prior to going out for some fresh. But anyway, we're told the consultations. I assume they're going to have the inclusion of the potential for logbooks or for tags, God forbid. And a lot of that, you know, again, I know I'm in the minority, but so be it. Even in the world of logbooks, If that was done, which is a bit of a nuisance, I get it, but at least at some point we'd actually have some numbers to refer to when we talk about the amount of cod taken recreationally in the food fishery versus in the commercial fishery. Because, we always hear anecdotally it's maybe 1% or less when we don't really know. We can take all the guesses we want, but maybe that'd be a helpful way to approach maybe extending the seasons into the future here, because it's the same thing. 39 days, and we have to wait till the 11th hour when people actually do apparently make plans to try to accommodate when we're allowed, quote unquote, allowed to go out and get a cod. All right, let's take our final break in the morning. When we come back, another full segment there for you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Michael, you're on the air.
Hey, how you doing? It's your, favorite obscure American here calling from all over my country the last few months. Potato fields in Idaho, and take some snowbirds down to Arizona. Now I'm at my mother's house in Eugene, Oregon. She just turned 85, and we're having a good time out here. And I just wanted to mainly call to say, you guys, if you're all brokenhearted over the Blue Jays loss and the bizarre and super unlucky ways that they did lose when it looked like you had it, down to the 9th inning in Game 7, I'm sitting there in a bar in Eugene going, geez, here we go. We came sack so far, and we're going to lose, and it's just like that 1, 2, 3, and then whammo, that Rojas guy, and then extra innings and all that stuff. I know exactly how you feel. I'm a long-suffering 40-year-plus fan of the often woeful Portland Trail Blazers, and when they get close to the finals 25 years ago, 30 years ago, they find a way to collapse and lose and stuff like that. So, and as far as how well the Blue Jays played, I mean, who's the better team? We'll never know for sure. Let's say the Dodgers were the luckier team with the crazy way things turned out there, and you guys are good enough. I wouldn't be surprised one bit if we wound up in a rematch at this time next year. That's the way all the Dodger fans are talking. I listened to hours and hours of coverage, the post-game show Sunday, the victory parade on their home station in L.A. over online yesterday, and all the stuff their callers were saying. I tried to call in and say what I just said to you guys about don't be surprised there's a rematch, but it's really hard to get through to their stations there, man. They're very popular, and everybody wants to call up and yell, "Woo, we won!" which they did. And as far as how good the Blue Jays are, well, just remember, most of their great players there, including that super pitcher with the funny name from Pennsylvania, Yasavage, most of the guys are American, just like most of my favorite Las Vegas Golden Knights are Canadians. Guys like William Karlsson and our first goalie, Marc-Andre Fleury. So just kind of funny how sports works out across the borders and all that. So anyhow, hope you guys weren't too brokenhearted, but I know how it is as a sports fan most of my life. I'm 61 now, and I've seen a lot of stuff, and that just might be the most amazing, memorable World Series ever. Just concluded there. So the guys in the MLB office are thrilled. The TV ratings were much higher in my country, much higher than the recent NBA Finals that good old Oklahoma City won. And I'm sure half the country was tuned in at one time or another up there. What would you say, sir?
Well, the ratings came out. It's the most watched Rogers sports broadcast ever. Around 11 million, which is around a quarter of the population of the country. There was more people watched Game 7 of the Major League World Series than watched the Super Bowl. So it was really popular. The ratings are massive. I really enjoyed it. I'm a diehard Blue Jays fan. I'm certainly disappointed. And on Saturday evening, I guess I could say I was a little bit heartbroken. But hey, it's sports. It's just the way it goes, right? You're going to win some, you're going to lose some. And unlucky is a good way to put it. The Jays, but sometimes you make your own luck. On paper, the Dodgers look unbeatable. And the Jays don't look like much more beyond a bunch of ragtag ball players. We got some superstars peppered in there, but they played great brand of baseball all year. And I don't know if, you can't say someone deserved to win or what have you. But the Jays out-hit them, Jays outscored them, and when it came critical times, they made some mistakes that they hadn't been making all year. But c'est la vie. Congratulations to the Dodgers. Congratulations to Dodgers fans. It was super fun to watch, and so fingers crossed for another good year next year.
Well, that's great to hear. I even made a couple of calls to random sports bars in the province of Ontario, not Toronto itself, but Hamilton and Windsor, on the Saturday afternoon, saying, "Hey, may the best team win. If you guys win, no hard feelings. We already got one title." And who knows? It just I almost got up early enough last Friday to call up and make a prediction that that the Dodgers would win Game 6 with their super pitcher Yamamoto, and you guys would squeak out some crazy victory in 7. Well, I was close. It was a crazy victory just for my team instead of yours. And I'll be watching during the regular season next year a little more closely than normal. See how they go. I loved how you beat the evil Yankees and the Mariners and all that on your way to the series. And who knows? Did I hear right somewhere that they had a very poor season in 2024? They were like sub 500 or something like that. I haven't checked that out yet.
Yeah, well, it went from last season to first this season, best record in the American League. So,
even better than I thought. That's quite an accomplishment right there. I think it could be similar to. I don't watch the World Series every year. It depends on whether I care about the teams or not. But in 2014, the lovable Kansas City Royals lost to the Giants, and then came back the next year and beat them in 2015. It could be one of those kind of things. Who knows? So that's my unofficial. Sports fan guy from some random part of the United States prediction here.
Well,
about that.
I appreciate the time, Michael. Eugene, Oregon is a beautiful part of the world. It really is. It's a beautiful state.
Oh, you've been lucky enough to visit here. That's great.
I've been up and down the coast. I've been from, say, Victoria all the way to Tijuana. So, I've seen the entirety of the Pacific West Coast.
Living in Las Vegas, I visit TJ about once a year. Always have fun and get some good bargains down there. And, we've got a very famous college football team here. You might have heard of the Oregon Ducks.
Powerhouse, no question.
That's what we're known for.
My team is the Ohio State Buckeyes, number 1 in the country. There you go.
Well, I was born in Ohio, and they clobbered the Ducks in the Rose Bowl, but I wasn't too mad, so I rooted for them and won the title later in January. That was awesome. So what an interesting coincidence there, sir. That's
there you
nice
go.
to know. Next time I talk to my Ohio friends, I'll tell them, hey, there's a guy in Newfoundland who's a big Buckeye fan. They'll love that.
Yeah, we were all big college football fans growing up, and, we watched Ohio State. We basically got a lot of Big Ten coverage here, so most of my buddies are either Michigan fans or Ohio State fans. You throw in the Iowa Hawkeye fan, which is a weird team to cheer for, or Purdue or Northwestern or what have you. But anyway, I got to get going. One more call, Michael. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, good talking to you as always.
Pleasure. Take care.
Good day up there.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, final thought goes to line number 1. Tara, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you?
Doing okay. How about you?
Oh, I'm okay. Thanks for responding to my email, but I just said, you know what, forget it. I'll just call you. I'm an injured worker, as I stated in my email to you. I was injured back in April at work. I had given myself a concussion and whiplash, severe as I was told. Did extensive physiotherapy twice a week, every week for months after, to, hitting a roadblock of my therapy. Couldn't figure out what was going on, why my therapy was no longer working and everything else. Come to find out that I have severely herniated the C6 disc and 7 in my neck, awaiting surgery to have that removed. But the thing is with, workplace NL for injured workers, Patty, from the day that I was injured for the first number of weeks, what they give you entitlement is a lot better in the short term than 13 weeks after. So after the 13th week, you're classified as long-term disability or long-term injured or whatever they use. And they base the amount that they give you on the year prior of your working income. So I made good money at work. We're not going to get into where I work or anything. I made good money at work. And basing it on the previous 12 months of prior to my injury to what I'm receiving it makes no sense to me. It makes absolutely no sense. I don't know why they give you a certain amount for the first 13 weeks of an injury and then they drop it significantly after that. Maybe they should look at switching this around to the first 13 weeks as, a short-term injury. Could be a little bit less than a long-term injury. I'm on the list for surgery, Patty, and I don't even have a surgery date yet. And my recovery is a minimum of 3 months after I have my surgery. I have been off work since the 22nd of April when the injury happened. My bills don't stop. Purchasing food to put on my table doesn't stop. But yet my income is a fraction being injured than when I was able and capable of working. Which is devastating because, I'm one of many injured workers that are facing this, that you don't know from 1 week to the next how you're putting food on your table. Me being one of them, I'll be upfront and honest. You don't know where you're going to be able to pay your bills next, or when, or how much you're going to be able to pay on your bills next. And it should never be as an injured worker. We should be treated a lot better. I have since put in for a review on my claim. I have since told them my hardships that I have faced since my injury, which are multiple physical, mental, emotional, issues. They told me that my review would take 45 days. My 45 days was up on the 1st of November. When I contacted Workplace to see where I was for, an answer to my review, it's still not looked at.
Tara, simply because of the time on the clock, and you're welcome to join us again this week, and I will follow up, like I said in my email. I appreciate this morning. Please do stay in touch.
I absolutely will, Patty. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Tara. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, good show today. We will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.